"You look cold, mister, you can use my blanket," the homeless girl whispered to the man sitting alone. It was the kind of New York evening that sank its teeth into your bones, gray skies, bitter wind, and the kind of cold that made the streets feel lonelier than usual. In the middle of Union Square Park, huddled on a worn bench, sat Thomas Ellington, a man who once commanded boardrooms, now invisible in the eyes of the world. His tailored coat still held the faint smell of cigars and power, but his soul was a tangle of grief and guilt. Just 6 months earlier, Thomas had it all: wealth, prestige, a penthouse apartment, and a loving wife named Marianne. Then cancer came like a thief in the night. It stole her smile, her laughter, and finally her life. When she passed, the silence in their home grew unbearable. He stopped showing up to meetings. Stopped answering calls. Money no longer meant anything when he had no one to share it with. He walked away from his empire, choosing anonymity over affluence. And that night, he sat on a bench with nothing in his heart but cold. "Sir," a soft voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned and saw her, a tiny girl, maybe 10, her hair tied back in a messy ponytail, cheeks red from the wind. Her clothes were worn, her shoes too big, and she clutched a tattered backpack to her chest. She was obviously homeless, yet she stood there with the innocence of someone still capable of wonder. "You look cold, mister," she whispered. "You can use my blanket." Thomas blinked, stunned. In her small hands was a threadbare, faded pink blanket, barely big enough to cover her. He opened his mouth to refuse, but something in her eyes, pure, unfiltered kindness, left him speechless. "I'll be okay," she said with a soft smile. "I got 2 sweaters." He reached out slowly, taking the blanket as if it were made of gold. "Thank you. What's your name?" "Maya," she replied. "Me and my mom sleep behind the church. She's not feeling too good lately." Thomas felt a lump rise in his throat. Here was a child who had every reason to be bitter at the world, offering him warmth without asking anything in return. They talked for a while, about nothing and everything. Maya told him about the soup kitchen lady who sometimes gave her extra crackers, about how she liked watching pigeons, and how she dreamed of becoming a nurse so people like Mama wouldn't stay sick. Her optimism, her resilience, it cracked something open inside him. That night, Thomas didn't return to his cold apartment. Instead, he followed Maya to the back of the church and met her mother, Elise, a frail woman with sunken eyes and a soft voice. She thanked him for walking Maya back safely. "She's all I have," she whispered. Thomas couldn't sleep that night. Wrapped in Maya's blanket under the stars, he thought of Marianne. How she'd always said, "If you want to feel alive again, go where kindness still exists." Maybe this was what she meant. The next morning, Thomas made a decision. He checked into a small motel, showered, and shaved for the first time in months. Then he made his way to a legal aid office and started filing paperwork. Over the next few days, he returned to the church each evening, bringing groceries, medicine for Elise, and storybooks for Maya. Elise cried the first time she saw the bag of supplies. "Why are you doing this?" "Because your daughter reminded me I'm still human," he said. Weeks passed, and Elise's condition worsened. One evening, with Maya asleep in her lap, she looked up at Thomas with tired eyes. "Promise me, you'll look after her." "I promise," he whispered, his voice breaking. Elise passed away 3 days later. Her funeral was simple but dignified. Maya clutched Thomas's hand the whole time, tears running down her cheeks but her grip steady. Thomas adopted her legally a month later. He moved out of his penthouse permanently and bought a modest house in the suburbs, somewhere with a yard, trees, and neighbors who waved hello. He went back to work in a new way, using his wealth to fund shelters, free clinics, and scholarships for homeless youth. Maya, once a child with a tattered blanket and 2 big shoes, thrived. She started school, made friends, and never stopped talking about becoming a nurse. One night, years later, Thomas sat on their porch, sipping cocoa as Maya, now 17, wrapped a warm blanket around his shoulders. "You still get cold too easily," she teased. He chuckled. "Only when I forget how lucky I am." And as they looked up at the stars, side by side, he realized that one act of kindness from a child had pulled him back from the edge. Because sometimes, the smallest blanket holds the greatest warmth.